CardGamesTV1 Podcast. The lack of deck loyalty. Or it's easier to, you can play the game on a budget, obviously, because of the fact that something I noticed that the OCGs definitely still do. Me and my friend group still do, but a lot of the new players, the current community doesn't do in America, which is why a lot of things are expensive, among other reasons. It's the fact that a lot of y'all don't have deck loyalty. Every time a new set drops, y'all want to play the new stuff instead of just playing what you already was playing and just add some new stuff to it. Right? You might find something, useful. Like, for example, it's like you don't need you don't need to play one of the new meta decks to play competitively or to even play against meta. You can just buy the stuff that beats the meta, right? The outs, as they call them, and side deck them or main deck them, and still play whatever you want to play. You want to play Madolches? Go ahead and play Madolches. Doesn't matter what your deck is or what your deck does. What matters is two things: your side deck, right, and your outs or your hand traps, right? Your evenly matched, your impermanence, your ash blossoms, your ghost ogres, your veilers, your sphere modes, kaijus, lava golems, the list goes on, right? If you got them, you got them. If you don't, you don't. And the thing is just figure out, what do you struggle with? Does your deck struggle with multiple negates? That's where sphere mode comes in, right? So, sphere mode, kaijus, that kind of stuff. Get what you can get. And the thing is, sorry, sphere mode is cheap right now. Lava golems are cheap because you can get commons. Kaijus are cheap. They always have been. So, unless you're like trying to get Gamma or trying to get some high rarity versions, there are low rarity versions of these outs. There's common ash blossoms. Evenly matched got reprinted. Even I got evenly matched. And I don't even play it, but I got it because it's cheap. That's the point. When things are cheap, that's the best time to buy, right? That's the best time to get stuff, when things are cheap. When things are expensive, that's when you're like, yep, I don't care. I'm not going to buy overpriced stuff, knowing that these things will go down in price over time. Unless I need it now, well, then you got to pay for the you need it now price. That's why everything is expensive, because you need it now instead of waiting like 3 to 6 months for the thing to drop for you to buy it. I got stuff in my TCG player cart that's a little pricey, and I'm seeing it slowly. Those cards slowly going down in price, and once they get down to a price that I want to pay, then I'll buy it. That's the thing. We control the price of the cards. We control what we do and don't buy. If you can't afford Bonfire, then you don't get Bonfire. It's just that simple. Play something else that you can afford, because you don't have to have these cards. It's weird that I see a lot of people in the community act like they have to, like they're being forced to play specific cards, specific combos, specific strategies. Like, no. Every deck that I've seen so far that has come out recently and from the beginning of the game, it's the same thing, just different artwork. That's it. Same deck, different artwork. Last year, everybody's trying to make multiple negates. The year before that, multiple negates. The year before that, multiple negates. If anything, this year, the combos are more elaborate. I saw like a Noble Knight deck I was playing against, and it took forever. Like, it kept summoning. Like, it took one monster and it kept going up and up and up and kept. And then, of course, he was trying to summon like 4 monsters, so he did end up summoning 4 monsters. But it took so long to summon each and every one of those 4 monsters because he kept like leveling it up. Essentially, kept summoning. And it was just like, man, that's way too elaborate. Why didn't they make it simple? Why didn't they make it where it's easy to get to that big boss monster with just a couple cards? Why did it took so long just to summon one monster and then summon another, right? And it was able to get multiple monsters. And of course I spear mode and kept it pushing. And I won that game. But the point was that why did it take so long to just to set up a board? And that goes into another thing. It's like why a lot of these strategies are not archetype locked. A lot of times they allow stuff to be generic that can be splashed into other decks. Like if you create an engine that's for let's say Fire Kings, then it should be Fire King locked. That engine shouldn't be able to just make anything, summon anything. It should only summon stuff for that archetype. That way, because I get the idea. The idea is to get people to play that archetype, to play Fire Kings. Well, the way you sell people on playing that deck is by making it where it is the only deck that can make a really cool board, and then everybody wants to play that, the archetype, and they'll buy into the product and try to get the cards to play that deck. But if you make stuff generic, then of course everything's gonna be overpriced because everybody's gonna want it because they could put it in any deck, right? Bestial Runics, instead of just Bestials by themselves and Runics by themselves, Bestial Runics, Earthbound Runics, and all these other runic variants. You know what I mean? Like they could have added the text to make it where you can't play other things with these things, so that way people are not mix matching these things like crazy, which causes a lot of this stuff to get overpriced because you got vendors, you got the secondary market, seeing the demand for everybody wanting the same cards, and it's like, well, we don't have a lot of copies of these cards, so they start jacking up the prices because the supply does not meet the demands. But further proves the point that everybody should be demanding the same thing. Everybody should be doing their own thing. You're supposed to have your own deck that you built, that you improve over time. Every new set is an opportunity to make that one deck that you have, or 2-3 decks that you have, better. It's not, oh damn, a new set dropped, I gotta make a new deck. No, you just upgrade your old ones. And if there's nothing new for your deck to upgrade, then you don't buy into the set, you save money. You don't have to buy into every set. Every time they drop a product, you're not supposed to buy. I see people complain about like, oh my god, they're dropping so many products, I don't have enough money for all of it. You're not supposed to buy all of it. What the hell's wrong with you? You're not supposed to buy everything. That's not how it works. You decide when you do and don't buy things. You buy what you truly need, not what you want. The problem is a lot of y'all want the same shit. A lot of y'all want the new shiny stuff. Like, oh, this is new, I want to play this new thing. It's like, well, you can go on Edo Pro, you can go on Dueling Book and play those new things and get that out of your system. You can proxy. I have a printer, I proxy shit and play. I could proxy Bonfire right now and just play with that for a bit, have a little bit of fun. It's like, okay, cool, I had fun with Bonfire, but I'm not gonna buy the damn card for the exaggerated price because I definitely don't need it. It's not like it's a must-have in my life. It's just a freaking search card. I can play the game without it. It's not like I need it to play the game. I play the game and win the game consistently just fine without it. So that's the thing. A lot of people act like they need something. Like, it's like, for you to need Bonfire means you've been losing, taking L's left and right for you to need Bonfire. Thinking that that's going to make you a better player. It's not. If you've been losing this whole time until Bonfire was printed, well, you shouldn't be playing the game because clearly you don't realize that the problem isn't the cards, isn't the game, it's you. But that's for another conversation, right? Main point is that a lot of people are chasing cards, buying cards that they don't need to be chasing or buying. There's a lot of support for a lot of old decks, and I like when they finally print stuff that supports old decks for those who still play those decks. I like when they made Link Monsters and more fusions for the Cyber Dragons, and I played them. They made Infinity, that was awesome. They gave Cyber Dragons their own Omni Negate, that was cool. Didn't have to tech in a Savage Dragon or Baroness or something like that to play Cyber Dragons. Cyber Dragons got their own Omni Negate, right? And that's nice when they do add something specifically that can do what other cards do, because Cyber Dragon Infinity and Omni Negate is no different from a Savage Dragon, no different from a Baroness, right? That's why I'm saying that every deck is the same Every deck's the same, but just different artwork, right? Different cards. The cards are different, but the outcome is the same. You're trying to put up some negates, some monsters that can negate stuff. You're trying to hand trap your opponent. You're trying to OTK. Like, we're all still doing the same thing we've been doing since 2008. Nothing y'all doing now is new. Like, I was the one who started off the whole unbreakable board thing. Like, here, I'll put these monsters on the field, and now my opponent can't play the game. I'm locking them out of the game. Lockdown strategy. That's what we used to call it, lockdown. But after a while, you know, people start catching on and then start calling it an unbreakable board. It's like, my unbreakable board, my unbreakable board. But the irony is, we've been breaking them, right? There's cards that came out that makes it where to break. Like, it took a long, like, one of the few cards we had to break the board obviously was like Lava Golem. But then eventually we got Kaijus, and then we got Sphere Mode, right? Didn't even really match. Dark World, Dark Ruler no more. You know, and then just even more board wipes like Lightning Storm and stuff like that. We started slowly over time getting more and more things to help beat that strategy, that old ass strategy, that old outdated strategy of making it hard for your opponent to play the game. But it's funny how the game devolved into just that basic ass strategy. You know, I like it when we try to do things different. I like it when there's a deck that's like designed specifically for mill. You know, it should always be the case that the field card, the runic field card should state that you skip your battle phase or something like that. Like, that deck should never be able to battle. As long as the field spell is on the field or you play any of their cards, you can't battle. It's funny that the field card doesn't have that condition where you can't battle. So as soon as you stop using your spell cards, then you can start attacking. It's like, no, it should just be straight just a mill deck. You should not be able to attack if you're running the engine. Right? If you're running the field card with the spells, you shouldn't be able to attack at all, right? So that way you're relying on milling your opponent out, and that's just the strategy. And that's the way it should be. That's the strategy for the deck. It should just be that, milling your opponent. And then make, like, you know, Grunix a destruction deck that just destroys everything, you know, type of stuff. So it's like, oh, that's crazy. It's a destruction deck. That's fine, right? That's its a gimmick, right? That's its strategy. And then just every different thing has their own strategy. They have a deck that looks at your opponent's hands, right? That's that deck strategy. You have another one that likes to bring the stuff back from the graveyard, like a zombie deck. And the list goes on. Like, everything has its own little thing that it does. That makes it different, unique, so people can have different ways of playing the game, you know, and different ways of winning the game, right? Winning through burn, winning through attacking, winning through, you know, milling, you know, stuff like that. And that makes the game interesting, more fun, and less boring. But if everybody's just put up multiple negates and make it where my opponent can't play the game, then it's like, well, then it's not a game anymore. If the whole idea you go first and you automatically win because your opponent can't play the game, that is bullshit. And Konami definitely shouldn't be allowing that, but whatever. You know, y'all like that, and Konami's gonna give y'all that until y'all start complaining, stop buying the stuff, and stop playing the strategies where it's like, oh, this is how we play, multiple negates, hand traps. We gotta have the outs of the hand traps, and this is all we're doing. Is going back and forth, trying to build a board that doesn't let our opponent play the game at all. And we're hand trapping to try to stop each other. And it's like y'all doing the same exact thing, just again with different cards. So it's like it gets boring because ain't nobody trying to be good at the game, try to, you know, win in a different way. Like recently, somebody won the Worlds different, right? With Exodia. That's cool. It's not impossible to win with Exodia, just no one wants to, except for that person. That person wanted to, and they did. And they proved that, yeah, you can win with Exodia. You just gotta want to. Even I went to a regionals once with Exodia. You know, I did pretty good. You know, it's fun. Part of the problem was, yeah, there was a considerable amount of people negating stuff, so it made it hard to get all the pieces. But, you know, I found ways around it. You know, I had my counters, right? I had my recalls and stuff like that, so I was able to negate their negates, so that I can get my searches and get my pieces. And that's the thing. It's just understanding what your opponents can do with their decks, and then having, outs to them, right? Having a strategy that helps you combat what they're doing, but without going too far. Where it's like, I gotta play Call by the Grave because everybody's playing hand traps. Like, no, you don't. You just gotta make sure that your deck doesn't get hurt by any of these hand traps. Make sure that you're not playing cards, search cards and draw cards that can be ashed, right? Don't play Kaiju Slumber because it can be ashed, right? Play Regeki instead. If you really need to make sure you can clear your opponent's board, you're better off with Regeki than Kaiju Slumber, because Kaiju Slumber can get ashed, but Regeki cannot, right? Be logical. Think of what people can and can't do. Make sure your strategy only is like you summon up to 4 times in a turn. That way you can't get a Nibiru'd. Don't deliberately try to have a 12 summon turn, a turn where you summon 12, 20 times, because you're going to get Nibiru'd, right? The idea is to make it where that's not necessary. Plus, it takes too long to be summoning 20 monsters in a turn. And then for what? To get Sphere Mode? To lose your 3 strong, negating, high-powered monsters? Like, I'd rather, do like 3-4 summons and then get Kaiju or Lava Golem or something like that, right? That's another thing. Don't summon 3 monsters so you don't get Spear Mode. Don't summon 2 monsters so you don't get Lava Golem, right? Or deliberately summon 2 monsters so that way they will have to Lava Golem, and that will prevent them from special summoning, right? I mean, normal summoning. You can take advantage of that, right? Take advantage of the fact that they can't normal summon, so they have to special summon. And if you have stuff that makes it hard to special summon, then great. That's another thing. You can put up like 1 or 2 negates, like 1 or 2 monsters that can negate stuff, right? And then have a summon limit. Boom, there, make it harder to summon. You can summon a monster and then play a barrier statue, that's or Fossil Diana, which is like generic. It will work against any deck. And that's the thing, every deck tries to special summon, especially a lot. So Summon Limit and Fossil Diana should be staples. Y'all should have them. You can get Fossil Diana for common. Summon Limit's always been common. Like, you can get high rarity versions if you want, if you got the money for it. But I'm just saying, there are common versions of these cards, and you can get them, and that automatically makes your deck a meta killer. Automatically gives you the ability to fight back the meta. You go first, Fossil Diana, Summon Limit, set some back row, or summon something like a Baroness, summon the Fossil Diana, right? Set the back row, boom. Your opponent can't play the game. It'll be hard for them to, because you got some outs. You got a strategy, right? They can't Kaiju you, they can't Lava Golem you, because they can't special. And you only have 2 monsters, so they can't Sphere Mode you. Right? So the best they could do is try to Regeki or something, or Lightning Storm, but you can negate it, right? Now, let's say they play Dark Ruler no more. Okay, they got the Dark Ruler no more. Good for them, right? But if you have like a Dark Bribe or some type of counter trap, like Solemn Judgment or something that can stop, like a Lightning Storm or something like that, then, after they play the Dark Ruler no more, then you're good. It's all about understanding what your opponent can do and then being prepared for it with generic basic cards that can be applied to anybody. That's the thing. Your outs need to be generic. It needs to be good against every meta deck, not just one. It has to be a good card that can beat any deck. Because here's the thing. You only need 2 cards to help you beat the meta decks, right? You don't have to worry about the decks that aren't meta, because decks aren't meta. You don't need specific outs to them. You just beat them by playing your deck. Your deck should be more than good enough to beat any deck that isn't meta. But once you go up against a meta deck, then that's where you're outs. That's where the evenly match, right? And the Ash Blossoms, if you got them, right? That's where they come in. You don't need that many cards to interrupt or to combat meta decks. Imagine the fact that most meta decks, they tend to have 1 or 2 cards in their hands that can help them create a, try to create a, combo, try to create a board, but the rest of their hand is hand traps. Well, that means out of their 6 or 5 card hand, there's only 2 good cards that they can play. Everything else is just hand traps. So since as long as you make sure the hand traps they have are useless against you, those are just dead draws. And whenever people play me, their hand traps are dead draws. Their Ash Blossoms tend to be useless because I don't search like that or at all. A lot of the cards that I use are from my extra deck, not my main deck. So Ash Blossom is always useless against me. So my opponent has to know what my deck is in order to specifically use the other hand trap that does the extra deck. Forgot the name of it. But you get the idea. It's like you don't need much to beat meta decks, and you don't need to play meta decks. You can play whatever you want, as long as your side deck is you know, anti-meta, right? And your main deck has a couple of anti-meta cards, you're good. It's always better to play anti-meta than to play meta anyway, because meta is just trying to do something really cool, or try to do quote-unquote cool, powerful stuff, but anti-meta beats the powerful stuff. That's the difference. See, some people try to make meta anti-meta decks, where they try to make anti-meta decks meta, right? Which is the irony in that, right? The meta deck is an anti-meta deck, right? The irony of that. But it is possible to have a anti-meta deck where your deck is anti-meta, but it's meta. So like 20% of it is meta, like some type of meta strategy, and then the rest, the remaining 80% of the deck is anti-meta, that helps them against the mirror match and helps them against you know, any other meta decks, right? So that's why it's always better to just play anti-meta. Play a strategy, play cards that help you beat every other deck. You don't need to be playing the quote-unquote best deck in the format, because it's actually not. The best deck in the format is always a side deck, never the main deck.